Shawn, I'm going to start this thing because we got a bunch of folks online who are joining us right now. My name's Dale Arnold. I host the Bruins games on Nesson, but more importantly, I was honored to be the co-author of this book, written by Shawn Thorton, called Fighting My Way to the Top. Shawn joins us from Florida, where he is the chief commercial officer for the Florida Panthers. We'll forgive him for that. Hi, bud.
Hello. Well, nobody else offered me the job, so.
Oh, I tried to get you to take a TV job with me at Nesson. You passed. So,
I did have that offer. You are correct.
Although I think you probably made the right choice based on how things are going. The book came out yesterday. By the way, we're at Toadstool, one of my favorite places. I did a book signing here for my first book a couple of years ago. We're in Nashua, New Hampshire. I love this place. Mike and the crew here are so nice, and they do such a great job. And as you can see, they got lots of Shawn's books here. Many of them, thanks to the nice folks at Triumph Books, many of these books are already signed by Shawn. So if you come by here, you can get a book that's already been signed by Shawn, but I'm happy to, add a signing on it as well. But just to give people an idea of what this process was like, we signed the contract in January of 2020 to do this book. And a month later, the world shut down. We didn't know. Nobody knew what we were headed for. And what was originally a process in which Shawn was going to come to Boston on a number of occasions and visit with me. I was going to go to Florida, visit with him. Didn't happen. And we basically wrote this entire book on the phone. Not what we had in mind, not what we thought was going to happen. But all things being equal, Shawn, it worked out okay, I think.
Yeah, we're going to bring you to Toronto. We're going to do a full tour, meet my buddies, just do the whole hot stoving, pick up stories that way. But the pandemic had other plans, like it did for a lot of things, and a lot of people. So, we made the most of what we did, and I think the book turned out all right, all things considered. So everyone we've talked to in the last few days seemed to have enjoyed it. I'm biased and hate talking nicely about myself, so I'm very hard on myself, but other people are seeming to really enjoy it. So it's good feedback and good to hear.
Just so people realize, I had to talk Shawn into doing this because he doesn't like to talk about himself. Ultimately, the only way I could get him to agree to do this is we have a whole bunch of people who we talk to in the book. Zdeno Chara, Patrice Bergeron, Mark Recchi. I mean, the list is almost endless. But the reason we have all those people in the book is because they had to say the things about Shawn that Shawn wouldn't say. Fair?
True story. Nice one to jump on the phone still, too. I guess they still like me maybe a little bit.
Well, a couple of the guys I had numbers for, but truthfully, many of them, Shawn would say, hey, Dale's going to reach out to you. Talk to him for my book. And immediately they would all say, sure, whatever he wants, including some people that might surprise some folks out there, including Brooks Orpik from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Shawn got suspended 15 games, the only suspension of his career, by the way. Got suspended for 15 games for an incident involving Brooks Orpik. And he talked to us because you told him, talk to Dale and say whatever you bleeping want to say.
Yeah, tell your side of the story. Make it truthful. I don't want any bull in this book. I'm a fairly straight shooter. People know me, and I don't want to be. I don't want anyone to think I have an agenda with this. As far as self-promoting, it's more just telling the story and being honest about it, and hopefully motivating a few people along the way. So yeah, Brooksy happily jumped on. I think he was a little hesitant at first, just because he's kind of the same way. He doesn't really like to be the center of attention, or didn't want to interrupt anything. But he got on, and you guys talked, and I'm glad you did.
Just an insider for you guys, because it's actually not in the book, but I'll give you an insider. He was upset with Shawn, not because of what Shawn did, but because Shawn thought he might have been faking how badly he was hurt. Have you guys worked this thing out?
Yeah, we're good now. We're good. It wasn't I, you know what, I will say, it wasn't I thought he was faking. Maybe I did a little, but it's because I couldn't fathom how I hurt him in that situation. It just didn't, like, I've said it before. I thought I did all the right things to not hurt him while making it look good. I fought 406 times, and punch people, throwing punches as hard as I can at people's heads and not hurt them. I felt like I didn't throw a very hard punch to Brooksy, but freak things happen. And, you know, that was one of those freak things. So unfortunate. I own it. I messed up. Yeah, we're fine now. I got this summer, I got invited to my golf tournament. Maybe I can convince him to come play some golf and have a beer. I mean, at the end of the day, Brooks is a good guy. I'm not a terrible human being. So an incident shouldn't ruin what we've had for years before him.
It probably didn't help that the off season after the suspension, while training in the off season, you did try to give him a naked hug, which probably didn't help it at all.
I thought that would break the ice.
It didn't seem to work very well. But,
no, I guess not.
I think that people might be surprised at least based on what I've heard from people over the last couple of days. They're surprised that there's a code. We write about the code. You talk about the code a lot in the book. There is a code among people who make a living the way you made your living.
Without even knowing I was talking about it, I don't think really. I mean, some instances, but it's just something that you inherently, adapt to as a player when you're in my role. It kind of becomes an unspoken way of living, and you just adopt it, and you learn from guys before you, and you hope to teach guys after you, and it's definitely there. I mean, I'm not saying every guy abides by it every second of their career, but there's definitely an unwritten code that most people in the hockey world live by, and I think that's why most guys are fairly humble, because whether they live by it in the locker room or out on the ice or off the ice, they're living by it.
I think fans who don't understand may have a hard time grasping this part. You would occasionally ask someone, hey, can we drop him here? And they would oblige or they would not oblige. People would ask you occasionally, based on the circumstances, hey, can we go here? And you would oblige or not oblige. People are surprised that happens.
Yeah, and I don't know, it happens. So I'm surprised people are surprised, because it's just it was a way of life for us. Yeah, I mean, there's 5,000 different ways to ask too. Sometimes you just had to look at each other. Sometimes it was a full conversation, convincing the person why you needed to do it in that very moment. And listen, there's also instances when there was no asking, and the actions spoke louder than words. But no, it happened quite often. I say more often than not, it was a conversation before it happened.
Were there times when you felt, I know the answer because I wrote the book with you, but for people who didn't read it yet, and I hope you do, there were times when you obliged someone even when you didn't really want to?
Yeah, it's part of it. I mean, sometimes you have to give one to get one. Sometimes you have to step up to the plate, even though it's not the most comfortable thing to do, to be able to earn the respect of others, and for me to be able to look myself in the mirror, kind of how I was raised. You can't run your mouth or pretend to do a job by not accepting challenges, whether they're more difficult than you would like. So yeah, there was a bunch I didn't want to do, but it's means to an end. It was a job. I wouldn't change a thing.
One of the common themes of the book with the people that I talked to outside of you was that people almost universally have misjudged who you are. They've misjudged how you got where you got to be. They misunderstand your commitment to the game. They misunderstood, frankly, your skill set, which is better than you give you credit for. But being underestimated is kind of a common theme of your life, isn't it?
Yeah, I was told my whole life I'd never make it. I mean, people are probably getting sick of me hearing me say this, but I truly believe it. I was probably the worst player on every team I ever played on after I was 14, 15, 16 years old. But I had a longer career than a lot of other guys. And majority of it, I would say, is from outworking or out thinking the people that I was up against. And I don't like talking about myself, so it's hard to say, but I mean, I'm proud I had an extended career. I played till I was 40 for, again, the worst player on most teams that I played on.
You're the chief commercial officer for the Florida Panthers. You've got a second career in the game right now. And I think at some point down the road, I could see you being a president and CEO of an NHL franchise at some point, whether it's the Panthers or some other thing. But it goes back to people who saw what you did for a living.
Mhm.
They think you're an idiot.
This
They
is true.
think you got
No,
something going on up here.
yeah, there's a common misconception that if you fight for a living, you're not an intelligent individual. I was actually on with Jim Rome yesterday, and he said it for me. It was nice to hear because he's been around hockey for a long time, just like you have. And, but a lot of people don't know that he has met multiple hockey players, and he actually used to enjoy talking to other enforcers. And he brought it up on his podcast that out of all the athletes he's spoken to, he feels like enforcers are the most thoughtful, well-spoken, genuine individuals that he's ever gotten to deal with. And he asked why I thought of that. My answer was because we had to think our way through the game probably better than other players. I mean, we can't just, and life, I guess, we can't just lace them up, go out and score goals with our natural ability. We have to put the extra work in. If we don't understand something, we better learn how to understand it. And, some guys get off the ice after 35 minutes. We're out there for 2.5 hours, and then in the gym for an hour and a half, and then studying tape on what we may or may not have done in the XYZ play to make sure we don't do it again. Because if we do it again, you're never getting back on the ice. So you can take those same principles of work and humility and ability and hunger to learn new things, and you transfer that across any vertical, including where I am now. You can have success just by, not just literally lacing them up and walking into the office thinking you're going to be able to do a great job that day. You get Gary Bettman told me this when I first stepped onto the business side. He said it's like nothing else. Or it's like everything else. Sorry, you get out of it what you put into it. At the end of the day, if you want to put the work in, you can be successful. But you and who you are and where you're coming from, you'll understand the hockey side. But the other side, you're going to have to put in twice the work, and I try to.
Well, speaking of work ethic, when I was around the team when you were there, I thought no one worked harder at their craft than you did. And I thought about when you made the transition to the Florida Panthers, and you said you were kind of casting about, what do I do? How do I fit in? And you would go around and just invite yourself to everybody's meetings.
Yes.
Hey, what's going on today? Well, can I come in and sit in? That's how you outworked everybody in that regard.
It's a start, yeah. And then, I would go home and study different organizations and what their marketing slogans were, what partners they had, what I would call other people in the business that I had, I was fortunate as a player, I paid attention to the business side, and I got to meet some truly remarkable people on the business side, such as Cam Neely, Amy Latimer, Sam Kennedy, Larry Lucchino, Luke Robitaille, the list goes on and on. I'd call them and I'd ask them questions about, how do you measure success on selling tickets? Where are season tickets trending for you guys compared to singles? What are you guys, what about partnerships? How do you approach what type of partnerships you're getting into? Is it you're just taking whatever money you can get in? Are you best of brand? Are you your marketing slogan? Do you have to identify with the organization, or does the organization have to identify with what the city feels? Is it the GM leading the charge on what the identity of the team is versus the city, and do they line up? I've always been asking questions because I always constantly want to learn, and I'm well aware I don't know my head from my toe most times. But again, you go home and you put the work in outside of the office, including what you're learning in the office. You can figure it out. You can always figure it out if you're willing to put the work in.
Inevitably,
I'm still not good at Excel, though. I have not learned how to be an excellent
you and me both,
Excel operator.
But you're a master at Zoom sessions now.
Yes,
by the way.
I'm really good at the Zooming.
I should point out, I guess, in this regard, that inevitably guys who make the jump from the ice to off ice within the game, they find that there's a something lacking, the competitiveness, that drive that kept you going every single day to go to practice, to go to games. How do you fill that void in your current role as an executive?
Revenue, all revenue. Revenue and growth, right? So I work for the Florida Panthers. It's no secret that our fan base, is while steadily growing since the Violas and Seafoos took over the organization. We don't have the fandom of some teams where I may have came from before, but whenever I see growth due to, something that myself and some people on our team has touched, or going out and chasing a new revenue opportunity, and when you close it's very satisfying. I chalk it up almost like scoring a goal. I probably closed more deals than I've scored goals actually in my career now. And then on the physicality part, we've talked about it a little bit in the book. Like I've really gotten into jiu-jitsu since I retired. I did it before I retired, but you get to compete against other people one-on-one. My wife won't let me go compete in like the worlds and stuff. She's like, you did 20 years of competing. Like you're not your hobby. You're not going to compete at your hobby anymore. But jiu-jitsu is like how I compete physically still.
For a guy who made his living the way you did, and you talked about how many fights, forget about the 140 some odd fights in the NHL. He had more than that in the minor leagues, leading to the NHL, and a bunch more than that in the junior hockey ranks, leading to the minor leagues.
And a few more than that just growing up in Oshawa.
And just growing up in Oshawa. What's been the toll physically for you?
I mean, they don't get to see my hand. It doesn't look normal. So, but it feels pretty good. Actually, jiu-jitsu helps that because I'm moving it constantly, wrestling. My right hip locks up a little bit. So I think I got some stuff in there, but nothing I need to worry about right now. Just stretch it out, roll it out, and I'm good. Everything else feels pretty good, actually. I mean, I had shoulder surgery once when I was playing, but it's better, back to normal. I actually messed my knee up, but not playing hockey. I did it 2 years after I retired. I was warming up for jiu-jitsu, not even doing jiu-jitsu, warming up, and I slipped and fell on the mat, and I had to get meniscus surgery. So 20 years of playing in the NHL and AHL, my knees are perfectly fine. It took me slipping 2 years afterwards to have to get an actual surgery on my knee. But no, I'm lucky. My body feels good.
There's a lot of discussion right now, as there should be in professional sports, about CTE and head trauma. And you and I talk about that in the book as well. You don't think that that's been a huge issue for you?
Not yet. I mean, I'm not naive that maybe down the road something could set in, but I didn't get hit all that much. I was a very tactical fighter. I was very smart. Listen, did I take a couple? For sure. I mean, I did it for a living, but I don't have huge mood swings. I don't have memory loss. I don't have, I feel like I'm put together every morning. Actually, I don't sleep because my mind's constantly running on what I can improve on in my life, whether it be at work, home, or physically. So yeah, I don't feel any effects that I'm aware of. I think I'm actually functioning at a fairly high level.
I spent 8 years working in the American Hockey League, riding the buses, the 8, 9, 10, 12-hour bus rides. And I say to this day that some of the best friends I have in the game came from those minor league days. And I know you wanted to be in the NHL, obviously, but you look back on your minor league days with fondness as well.
Oh, 100%. I mean, listen, was I down there longer than I would have liked? For sure. I mean, I would have loved to have made the Blackhawks after my first game up there and just stayed for, 20 years, but 16 years, whatever it would have been, 14. But I had 4 years in Newfoundland. One of the greatest experiences of my life. 4 years of meeting some of the greatest people I'll ever meet. I mean, my wedding, we had 100 people. I think 30 or 35 of them were from Newfoundland. It's there was a special time. Then moved to Norfolk, Virginia. A couple cups of coffee in Chicago, which is also a great city. But Norfolk was a really good town. I had some great teammates, and actually one reached out to me today. My first roommate in Norfolk, Matt Henderson, reached out and said, "Hey, when's this book drop? I just read about it." It was like yesterday, you idiot. So no, I got some fond memories from the minors. Again, 9 years is a long time down there, though. Don't get me wrong. You said you did 8. I did just around 9 while doing a very tough job. But you're still playing the game for a living, right? I mean, you're still around 22 guys that you want to hang out with and have a beer with. And the minors is a little different than the NHL too. Once you get to the NHL, a lot of guys, well, we're tight. They all have families. They all live in their own areas, their own sometimes big houses or condos or apartments or whatever. In the minors, everyone lives together. Like all the guys live in the same condo complex because they got a group deal that they could save $300 a month on their 2-bedroom. And then everyone's doing potluck all the time. You're always hanging out at everybody's house. Like you're truly like friends. Like everyone's just popping in and out of each other's apartments. So there's some great experiences from down there. And I think it truly made me the type of leader I am because I was immersed in that situation for 9 years.
You played in the Maple Leafs organization, Blackhawks, Anaheim, Florida, obviously, and Boston. And this is not meant to disparage any place other than here when I say this. we're at Toadstool Bookshops in Nashua, New Hampshire. Guess who they're fans of here?
Yeah.
And the time that you spent in Boston, and you say in the book, was maybe the best times of your career.
Definitely my NHL career, 1000%. You know, I played 7 years there too. It was the longest stint. I actually, looking back at each stop, I thought 4 years in Newfoundland was an exorbitant amount of time down there. I think Nathan Dempsey played 9 years. I couldn't think how he did it, but Norfolk, 5 years. That's a long stretch in a minor league city. Most guys are there for their 3-year entry level, and maybe one more, and then they're gone, or 2 years each place after that, especially for the role I played. I had to play 7 years in Boston. Like, it was a long time. It was home. We were there year round. We obviously had a lot of success. Team went from 12,000 people in the home opener my first year to, you know, play Montreal in the playoffs that spring. And really, I think the building's been packed ever since. So we got to see a lot of growth there. And, you know, you win a championship, it's the glory years. I was in Anaheim. We won a championship. It was amazing, but I lived in a hotel for 6 of the 7, 8 months I was there. Life didn't move down till I think March 15th or something like that. And didn't have anyone close by, didn't have family. It's the West Coast, you're on a different time zone. So amazing, great experience. I'm not complaining whatsoever, but like, it didn't feel like home. I felt like I was there to do work, and I was lucky to accomplish the Stanley Cup, but Boston it felt like home, just like Florida does now. I mean, it's been 8 years down here now, or 7 years down here now. You know, it was just home for us, and it still feels like it when we come back there too.
It is different here in one regard in particular. And I'm not saying that people who do what you do for a living aren't appreciated in Chicago or Anaheim or Toronto. They are. They're appreciated everywhere. But it's different here, isn't it?
I would say Boston for sure, Toronto close second, probably Montreal, and then some of the Western Canadian teams. But Boston, it's a scrappy town. I mean, once you get in the boroughs, like, it's a scrappy town. People grew up literally, you know, doing it just to get out of the playground or whatever it might be. It reminds me of my hometown, and I think that's why I related to it so much when I got there, and lived in Charlestown. I mean, people appreciate it because most of them have been punched in the nose at some point in their lives, and they know what it's like. And they really embrace them. We talk about it in the book. Cam called me the day of free agency when I was deciding between Chicago, Boston, San Jose. I think there's a couple other, like,
Buffalo, I think.
Buffalo, yeah. I think there's a couple other offers coming down the pipeline. Cam called me. He's like, I don't think you understand. Like, people in this town really appreciate players like you. And it was the understatement of the decade for me.
The foreword to the book is written by Tuukka Rask, and people who don't know you and don't know the story might be surprised by that, just like they're probably surprised by the fact that a tough guy from Oshawa is best friends with a goaltender from Finland.
Yeah, I mean, we're really tight. He's got 6 friends from Finland. I would not say I'm tighter than he is with them. I mean, we all went to Vegas together for his Vezina Trophy winning celebration back in whatever year that was. Yeah, no, we're tight. We hit it off from day one. He's cut from the same cloth as me as far as laid back, easygoing, doesn't like attention, never wants to be the center of attention, keeps his circle fairly tight. Teammates are family to him. His family's family to him. I mean, we talk about in the book, like, there's some days he'd be in my hometown reaching out to my buddies, and it's not that he doesn't love his teammates. He's like, I just felt like hanging out with your buddies for a couple of days and not thinking about hockey, and just hanging out and, you know, having some good food and going to local spots with them and feeling like a Toronto local for a couple of days. I would do this when I went to Finland. I would do the same thing. I called his brother. I'm like, hey, let's go out for dinner. Like, let's show me around the town. So he's a good human being. I'm going to see him tomorrow, so I'm excited.
He also is more like you than people would realize. He's really competitive.
Yes, he is.
I mean, he doesn't fight necessarily the way you fought, but he's really competitive.
He stops him. He stands in front of 105-mile-per-hour slap shots. I wouldn't do that. I got out of the way. I never blocked a shot to save my life. I couldn't wait to get out of the way of those things. So different type of toughness.
Jerry Cheevers once said to me that when somebody's shooting 105 miles an hour at you, 2 things can happen. And the worst one is it hits you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Because it hurts. Yeah. And yet he would do that. It was funny because you talked to him about writing the foreword of the book. And when I reached out to him to do the actual writing, he didn't want to talk about himself at all.
No.
He wanted to
He's a
spend the
bit-
entire time talking about you.
He's the same. Yeah, we're cut from the same cloth. He hates talking about himself. Why we like each
When
other.
you were fortunate enough to be part of a Stanley Cup championship team in Anaheim, an old friend of mine was the guy, Brian Burke, who was running that organization.
Yep.
In fact, he writes a blurb on the back cover of our book because you and he are a lot alike as
Yes.
well. You were part of a Stanley Cup championship team, and it was special, and it was your first cup. But you said it felt different here because you felt like in Boston, you were so much more a part of winning the cup.
Yeah, I mean, again, your whole life as a Canadian kid playing street hockey, ball hockey, ice hockey, scrimmage, pond hockey, you're always pretending you're winning the Stanley Cup, right? That's what you're playing for in all those situations. And for me to actually achieve it, my first full year in the NHL, when I was on the brink of quitting hockey and going back to do some other stuff back home, was really special for me. Like, it was the most exciting moment of my life at that point, 100%. But I was a small smoke on the wheel. Like, I felt like the Anaheim Ducks won the cup for me, not that I had helped them win the cup, put it that way. Whereas in Boston, I was around for 4 years at that point. Felt like I had helped, change the culture in the locker room and on the ice. Was part of the leadership group with Bergie, Z, Axie, Nye, like the guys that are probably going in the Raptors one day, and played more meaningful minutes too as well. So that one meant more to me. That's how I always explain it. Anaheim, the most exciting moment of my life. The cup in Boston means more to me.
We talked about this a bit in the book. Given what you do for a living, there were times when your job required you to fight with a former teammate, friend,
Yeah.
Adam McQuaid, for instance. After he left the Bruins, you had to fight with Adam McQuaid at one point. And I bring it up because I saw the video last night or the night before when Zdeno Chara fought Pat Maroon again. And I was thinking, that's probably Zdeno Chara's one you'd just as soon not have had to take on.
Yeah, he's one of a few. But we never had to do it. We never had to run in. The games didn't get in hand after I left Boston. The one incident with Quater, I was on the ice. They're up by a few goals. I asked him. He didn't oblige, and then he finished a check on one of my line mates, slightly on the line. It was a clean hit, don't get me wrong, but it was like I had a chance to address what I needed to address to try and change momentum, and Quater happened to be the guy that did it at the time. If it was Z, I probably would have grabbed him. If it wasn't Quater, just trying to change momentum. But this is nothing against Quater. Yeah, I'd rather grab Quater than Big Z. Quater's as tough as nails, don't get me wrong, but Big Zdeno's 6'9". It's a lot of levels to get up.
Andrew Ferrand said to me one time, he said, Dale, the thing you got to remember about Zdeno Chara, is that if he's not careful, he could kill someone.
Yeah, he's that strong.
He is literally that strong, isn't he?
Yeah. His dad was a Olympic Greco-Roman wrestler, so like he knows how to grab, and he boxed with Tommy, my boxing coach. Like, he knows how to throw hands. He's ridiculously strong and in shape. So yeah, it's no walk in the park grabbing the big guy.
You mentioned Tommy. Tommy McInerney is in the book. He was a guy you trained with as a boxer. By the way, you'll love this. I'm going to train with Tommy in a couple of weeks.
Nice.
I'm gonna go throw hands with Tom McInerney. He's a wonderful guy,
Yeah, he is.
sweetheart of a guy. But that's how serious you took what you do for a living. You didn't just rely on, well, I'm big, I'm strong, I'll go with anybody. You wanted to learn your craft.
Yeah, and I started with my mentor Lionel when I was about 14, 15 years old. That was when I first started boxing. He wasn't a traditional boxing coach, mind you, but I put the gloves on, and he knew enough to make it dangerous. Then when I was in Virginia Beach, I used to train at a gym called Waring's Gym, where my wife was personal training. They had a big boxing presence at their gym. And then when I got to Boston, I was looking to go somewhere. And Eric Tosi, actually the PR guy for the Bruins, he's like, I just got into boxing. I wanted to try it too. I got this guy Tommy. I was like, you mind asking if he'll train me? And I went in. I had my money ready. I was, here you go. And Tommy's like, you don't ever give me $1. Just happy to have you here. Trained with him for 10 years. One of my best friends, and just salt the earth type human being.
And he introduced you to Freddie Roach.
He did. Well, actually, Tom It's not Buckley. Who is it from the Miami Herald? Oh God, I'm messing this up. I feel awful. It wasn't Buck. I'm gonna think of it. Anyways, he introduced us to Freddie, and then Tommy's tighter than Freddie with Freddie than any of us now. He's out in wild card all the time, hanging out with them. They're really good people, and I thought I'd represent the wild card Jim today on this call.
I don't want to give away too many stories in the book because I want people to buy them. But speaking of people who make a living doing that for a living, you tell a great story. You're in the Stanley Cup Finals. You're in Vancouver, and Kenny Florian is fighting in Vancouver.
Yeah.
In this huge UFC card. And what does he do to turn heel on the crowd in Vancouver?
Yeah, he wore my jersey out. We had talked about it. He was training in Montreal for the fight, and we had dinner. It was me, him, and Nides, and me and Kenny are pretty tight. And I was like, "Hey, man, like, we make it to the finals. We're playing Vancouver. It's right on that time." He's like, "You do it. I'm wearing your jersey out the way." And I was like, "All right." So, obviously we kept in touch every few days as we were going through the playoffs. Like, good luck. I'm like, "How's the weight cutting going? What's the training like?" Blah 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 blah. And then when we got there, the day before weigh-in, me and Sheriff Shane Knighty swung by to give him his jersey, and oh my god, he did not look good. He was cutting the last 5 or 6 pounds to get down to, I think he was fighting at like 145 or something. That fight, it was 135 even. It was the lightest he ever fought. But yeah, he came out and was rocking my jersey. That was pre the Reebok deal with UFC, so guys could wear what they wanted on the way out. And I still have the picture. I mean, again, he's a close friend of mine, so I'm not fanning out over it. But the fact that my jersey was worn at a weigh-in for I'm not sure if it was a championship fight or the precursor to the championship fight he had with Aldo, still a pretty cool moment.
We talk at one point in the book about the opportunities you've been granted given what you do for a living, and Tommy McInerney and Freddie Roach and Kenny Florian. But it might surprise some people that there's a pro golfer in there too that you had an opportunity to kind of get to know.
Yeah, a few of them actually. Keegan Bradley's a good friend. Talking to him, yes, they were playing on his dime tomorrow at one of his courses. Actually, I can't wait to rack up the tab. Brendan Steele's a good friend of mine. I got to play with him in the pro-am. Padraig Harrington, got to know him pretty well, and ended up being able to like hang out with him in Dublin in his hometown. And Padraig's, I think, a couple years older than me, but like when I was in my 20s and really getting into golf, he was actually the person that I used to cheer for. So it's pretty cool, and to meet him, him and his caddy Ronan, two of the greatest human beings you'll ever meet. Got to know all of Keegan's friends. We're playing with his high school teammate tomorrow too, Johnny Curran, who's a mass guy from Framingham. And yeah, very, very. I met a lot of cool people in this industry because of what I got to do and playing in that town. The list goes on, and the amount of opportunities we've had, and I don't take it for granted that I'm a kid from Oshawa that worked in a steel factory, and now I'm playing nice golf courses with people that other people would pay lots of money to probably golf with.
You mean like when you had your day with the Stanley Cup, when you won it with the Bruins, and you had the Dropkick Murphys just do a concert at your day with the Cup?
Yeah, their idea too. I met those guys through Andy Ferentz, and one of the first interactions I had with Ferrer when I got to the Bruins is he came into practice. It wasn't practice. It was like practice before practices started. We got there a couple weeks before training camp, and he was a little under the weather, to say the least. I'm like, "What are you up to?" He's like, "I went to a Red Sox game with a couple of guys from the Dropkicks." I was like, "You know those guys?" He's like, "Yeah, they're awesome." I was like, "I'm a big fan." He's like, "Ah, I'll introduce you." So we went to a concert, got to know them, and become really tight with Kenny Casey. Been on golf trips with him and stuff. And yeah, when we won the Cup, Kenny's like, "Hey man, you want us to play a few songs at your Cup party?" I was like, I would be honored. I would love it. And then they ended up playing 3 hours, and they're good people, good guys.
The book's only been out a couple of days. Some folks have had a chance to read it. Some people, I mean, literally have just started it. What's been the most surprising reaction you've heard so far from the folks who've had a chance to see it?
Well, I'm pretty hard on myself, so I wasn't sure how it would be taken. I'm an optimist with life, but a pessimist when it comes to how my writing skills might be, even though you pen most of it. But in most of my stories, all my stories are my buddies. So I was pleasantly surprised that people all said that, they thought it was well balanced, that I was very vulnerable, which they wouldn't expect from me. And I think like you said earlier, the appreciation for the work that went into the craft, whatever that craft might be. I think people really thought I just showed up to the rink, laced up my skates, and I was a tough guy growing up, so I could just go out and do that for a living, and which wasn't the case.
Have your mom and dad had a chance to see it yet? Because the book sold out in Canada, for God's sakes.
I know, it's a good problem. No, my mom texted me yesterday. She's like, "It's sold out up here. Did you save me a copy?" I'm like, "Of course I saved you a copy, Mom." Yeah, they're coming down in January, so if they don't get one before then, I'll make sure I'll give them the copy then.
Mike says send them to Toadstool. We'll get them a copy here
Yeah.
too. So.
Yeah, they want to drive across the border. Is it open yet? I can't remember.
Let me give one other quick anecdote here. There's another person who's a big part of the book who I haven't met yet. And it's your wife, Erin.
Ooh.
And you had set it up for me at one point. I was going to talk to Erin and we were going to, write some stuff for the book. And I knew how much I liked her when I called the number and I said, "Is this a good time?" She said, "Yep. I'm hiding in my closet with a can of beer. Shawn's got the kids. Let's go." I thought, I love this woman.
Yeah, I gave her a heads up. Yeah. Well, the kids are mommy's girls. So yeah, she has to literally hide and have to pretend she's not anywhere around for me to get all their attention. But yeah, I walked in, I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to bath them now. Do you mind?" Because you guys have been talking for an hour or two, I think, at that point.
It was a while.
Yeah, she was on her second beer, I think. She's like, "Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. You got them. You got them. We're still talking here." No, she's good people. She's a straight shooter.
But she also was critical in your career path because she said, "We got to change things up here."
Yeah, and I didn't understand probably exactly how I wouldn't say out of control because I was always in control, but how much I was pushing the limits on diet, going out every single night with my buddies, enjoying the fruits of the game, while putting the work in. Though, I mean, that was her message. Like, you're the hardest working person I've ever seen my whole life, but then 10 o'clock at night comes and you've wasted it all because you had a huge dinner, you had 14 beers, maybe you're out with your buddies 4 or 5 nights a week. Like, don't mind you having fun, but if you really want to be serious about making it, like, you're just breaking even. Like, put the work in, just put it in for a few months to see what happens. And I mean, I made the Chicago Blackhawks camp, or out of camp that year after I got serious, and she changed my diet and helped me stay in 4 or 5 nights a week. And I was only going out 1 or 2. And it definitely helped.
We should point out she's also a personal trainer. She's in better shape than any of us, for God's sakes.
Yes, she was a personal trainer when I met her. And honestly, push comes to shove, she could probably pound more beers than all of us too. She's a carbon copy of me, that's for sure.
You came back to Boston a couple of weeks ago. Florida was in town. You came in. We did an event at Encore Boston, kind of the kickoff event for the book. In fact, ironically, it was the first time we had seen each other in 2 years that we were trying to put this thing together. Are you still surprised at the reaction you get when you come back here?
Yeah. I remember when I left and I was worried about my charity golf tournament. Like, are people still going to show up to this now that I'm not a Bruin? And I mean, we're 7 years now after that. The thing's still sold out. We had a few hundred people show up to the Encore. It was a steady crowd from the time we were there to the time we left to get the book signed. So I'm surprised because I don't think that way, but I'm happy that I was able to make an impact in the community enough that people still want to be, I guess, welcome me back and are appreciative of having me back.
The last third of the book, more or less, ballpark, 25%, 30%, I wanted to show who you were off the ice. I wanted to show how you give back. I wanted to show how you're moving forward with your career. And when I talk about all the folks who wanted to talk to me about you for the book, and I mentioned Patrice and Zdeno and Mark Recchi and all those guys, the last third of the book is people who have nothing to do with on the ice. It's all off the ice. It's your boss in Florida. It's Katie at Children's Hospital. It's Lisa at the Jimmy Fund. It's Fred Gutenberg. They wanted to talk to you as much as any of the hockey players did, because that has always been a crucial part of who you are, giving back to the communities you live in.
Yeah, it was always important to me. People have asked, like, what do you want to be remembered for when you retire? And I said it as a player, and I'll say it now, like, the amount that I was able to give back and ingrained in the community. I love the Stanley Cups, don't get me wrong, but it means more being able to change somebody's lives at a children's hospital, or being able to make money to donate for the cancer research project that might change somebody's life down the road. That stuff means more than the Stanley Cups.
Every year, I was involved with the Jimmy Fund Radio Telethon. I've been involved in all of them, all 19 of them or something. And every year you'd show up, and the Thornton Foundation would make a significant contribution. And the Thornton Foundation is something, you don't have a Twitter account. There's no @Shawn Thornton.
No,
There's a Thornton Foundation Twitter account, and that's it.
that's it. Yeah, again, I understand social media. Like, I'm in charge of it for an organization. I get the advantages to having it. For me, though, it's all about, I don't need the brand growth. I don't need the attention personally. I don't need to monetize my own platforms and sell impressions and all that. So I always want it to be about giving back to the foundation, and obviously some personal stuff slides on there because people do want to see it, and it's a way to engage with myself through the foundation. There's a picture, I think, of me and Luch at a Christmas party drinking a big beer. That's probably not the right thing to put on your foundation page per se, but I also want people to look at it and know that the foundation, if that brings a couple extra eyeballs onto the foundation, then great. But yeah, I'm happy. All the people that support the foundation, the people on the board that help me form the foundation and run it daily, like, I'm very fortunate that people are behind me and really believe in the cause that we're doing. And if it weren't for them, it wouldn't be possible.
You guys who are here, before we let Shawn seal off and peel off for his part there in Florida, if you've got any questions that you'd like me to ask Shawn, I'm happy to pass them on. And anything you're interested in, or anything
I'm
you
happy
want
to
us
answer them too. Don't
Yeah.
be shy.
Yeah, trust me, he'll answer. Sometimes you might not want to hear the answer, but he'll answer.
This
I
is
learned
true.
that very early on in this book writing process as well. So anything that you guys have, we're happy to add. Otherwise, we're going to let Shawn get out of here. And yes, sir.
Tom King with the Nashville Telegraph.
Yeah.
Covered the Bruins when Shawn played. The question I have is, he was a leader in the locker room, constantly. We would go to him after games. Does he ever want to get into coaching in the NHL?
Tom covered the team for the Nashville paper when you were playing there. And he said, you were always a leader. Guys in the media would go to you in the locker room after the game. Have you ever thought about whether or not you'd want to coach at some point?
I thought about it. I thought about it as a career path as I was playing. I'm not too good at I'm not good at too many things, but I actually think I would have been decent at coaching. The way I thought about the game, the way I had to think about the game and study the game, I think I would have been okay with it. What steered me away from it, to be completely honest, is the transient nature of it, not knowing where you're going to be from one year to the next. I did that for 20 years as a player. Again, very fortunate to play in a lot of in 4 spots for a consistent basis, but that's very rare as a player, and it's even more rare as a coach nowadays. And I just didn't like the thought of, when I retired, my wife and I and our family having to move every 2-3 years to find the next coaching gig here or there, this league, that league. It just didn't sound as appetizing to me. So the upside might have been higher. If you're an NHL coach, you probably make a lot more money than what I'm making now. I know you do. So I've seen the budgets on NHL franchises, but the security of just being in 1 or 2 places really meant more to me than making a few extra bucks.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
What does he think about the Red Sox buying the
Oh, that's a good one.
Pittsburgh Penguins and Mario giving up control?
What do you think about the Fenway Sports Group apparently in negotiations to buy the Pittsburgh Penguins and Mario giving up control?
I think, Mario was only, I think, a 2% owner, if I'm not mistaken, anyways. I think Burkle had control of the team, but Mario ran it on the daily. I don't know what the deal points are. I would assume, and it's complete assumption, and Mr. Telegraph, please don't write this. This is off the record. I would assume they're going to keep Mario on in some sort.
I think I've read that as well.
Yeah, some capacity. I think. Listen, I know those guys at Fenway Sports really well. They're very, very, very smart successful individuals. And I would assume keeping a legend like Mario Lemieux on board would be paramount for them. What do I think about it? I think Pittsburgh's done an amazing job the last 25 years with that franchise. They've been very fortunate to have, I think Billy Guerin told me that, 20 out of the last 26 years, they've had the MVP of the league or the top scorer, right? Whether it was Yager, Mario, Sid, or Malkin, like they've been very fortunate. They've won some cups. They built a brand. They still continually push. I talk to their CRO all the time. They're not ever satisfied. They're constantly pushing forward. Their social growth is great. They're really about content. They really do a lot of good things well. And I think I don't know what the asking price is, but I do know that the Fenway Group are an amazing bunch of owners and operators. And I think it's if it goes through, I think it'll do a lot of great things with it.
I will say back when the Penguins signed Mario to the big deal, and I was talking to Harry Sinden about it at the time, and Harry said, Dale, they can't afford to pay this contract. He's going to own this team someday. He was right.
He wasn't wrong.
No, Harry had a pretty good business sense about him. He was right. Mario ended up owning it.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi, Travis Stanley, Merrimack, New Hampshire, fan of you. Just wanted to ask you, I missed the beginning of it, but what are you drinking?
What are you drinking, Shawn?
Oh, I'm having a Canadian Caesar right now. Canadian Bloody Mary.
There you go.
Yeah.
What's in there?
What's in it?
It's basically a Bloody Mary with Mott's Clamato instead of the tomato cocktail. So it's a tiny bit of vodka, Tabasco, Worcestershire. I can never pronounce that word. Salt, pepper. I think might put a little bit of pickle juice in this one, and then
Yeah, this guy says it's a lot of work, Shawn.
it is. I didn't do it though. This is this every Sunday morning. This is what you would have in Canada if you're 19 years and above.
Thanks, man.
You got it.
Yes, sir. Did you? I saw another hand up. Yes, sir. Oh, I'll go to both, but say again, sir. Who was your favorite player to play with the Bruins?
Oof, too tough. I mean, I played with a lot of great ones. Obviously I'm tight with a few guys, like Axon, Nides, Tukes, Kruger, Berge, Z, Kevin Miller. I don't know. There's too many guys. We had such great teams that it's tough to pick. It's really tough to pick one individual. I'm tight with a few of them. I'm really tight with select few.
You did say to me one time that Patrice might be the only hockey player you know who you wouldn't mind if he was dating your sister or something.
This is true. Yeah, anybody.
He is like the perfect human being, isn't he?
100%. 100%.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Shawn, Jim Porter from Nashville, big fan. And I just want to thank you for playing here and you gave us some great hockey to watch. And if I was playing hockey at the level you did, I'd want you on my team.
Oh, thank you. I heard him. Thank you. That means a lot. I really appreciate it. I'll tell you on that, not to bore you guys, but one of the highlights off the ice of my career is myself, Keegan Bradley, Derek McKenzie, who's the assistant coach for the team now. He was my centerman at the time here at the Panthers, and Bobby Orr went golfing. And obviously Bobby didn't want to golf with me because there's a PGA Tour pro there. But he told Keegs, he's like, you know what? I think Doherty could have played on our team. He would have fit in with that era. And it was like the biggest compliment that I've ever had because I think the world of those guys. So you saying that brought that back. So I appreciate it.
An old friend of ours and a guy who I spent a lot of those years in the minor leagues with, Tom McVie, called me today, and he was an assistant coach for the Bruins. And he said, D, he's got a real deep voice. He said, D, I don't read many books, but I'm going to read Shawn's. He said, and I don't keep many things, but I've got one of his jerseys. That was pretty cool.
That's very cool. Yeah, I got nothing but respect for Tommy McVie. He's a legend through and through.
Anyone else? Before we let Shawn head off to his second Caesar. Well, I'm assuming this was the first. That might be wrong on my part.
No, it is. I'm going to go bath the girls probably in 10 minutes.
Oh, this nice lady said, what do you think about Chris Kelly behind the bench?
Is he behind the bench in Boston now?
He is.
Good for him. The bench just got grumpier.
he said the bench just got grumpier. But he's a student of the game too, isn't he?
No, he is. Kel's a really smart guy. Very hockey wise and off the ice. Very professional guy, great leader too. I mean, he was a piece that we brought in that fit right away. And not only did he fit like personality wise, he fit the culture. It's like he should have been a Bruin his whole life. He played in Ottawa for most of his career, right? And then comes in at the trade deadline, and like a week in, he's yelling at guys, why didn't you do this? That's not team first. That's not this. That's not how we play. I'm like, who's we? You just got here 2 weeks ago, bud. But no, he understood it. He had that mentality and I'm not sure if the other organization was like that. I have no idea, but that was his mentality and how he was brought up. And he couldn't have been a better fit in that locker room.
Yes, sir. You had something else?
Shawn, I just wanted to say thank you for putting out this book and letting us into your life a little bit here. And thanks for everything you did and everything you do.
Thank you. Thank you. If you don't like it, buy 2 more and just use them as kindling so I can make a couple extra cents. All right.
Or as I tell people, if you like it, tell me. If you don't like it, tell Shawn. And good luck with that. Shawn, I know the folks up here in Nashville appreciate you taking the time to join us. I'm going to sign whatever.
More so than that, I appreciate them showing up. I mean, I'm humbled by the fact that people showed up to buy a book with my ugly face on it and to have a conversation with me for a half hour. So I appreciate you all.
Wait till you go through an airport and see a whole rack of these things staring back at you.
It'll be the only time in my life I'm okay that I have to wear a mask in the airport, like sunglasses, mask, hat.
All right, bud. I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, you guys. There are signed copies of the book here. We'll see you, bud. There are signed copies of the book here. I'm happy to sign it as well if you'd like. But I hope you enjoyed listening to. You got a pretty good sense of why it was so much fun writing the book, even if it was over the phone. Even.